Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Next Level Broadcasting Show. I am Eric Huffman, alongside Tom Clementson, Jared Stamen, and Charles Strail, the head man himself behind the table, making sure we look sound as good as possible and look, but he does his best. But
Can't fix ugly.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. What we want to do is go over and recap last week's games that we had, all 5 of them, and then give you a preview into tomorrow's games coming up. So again, we're going to try to pack as much as we can into our allotted time, and so we're going to get right into it and start with last week's game with Gaylord St. Mary's and Tom Clementson.
It was an awesome game. Rudyard was visiting, and as always, we expect teams from the Eastern UP to come in tough, be physical, and that's exactly what the Snowbirds found with this Rudyard Bulldog team. Excellent way to start the season in terms of an opponent. You know, one of the things that you hear Coach O'Connell talk about all the time is iron sharpens iron, and you kind of see the opening drive. The very first play of the game was a big one. It was a touchdown pass from Nathan O'Connell, and so great way to get the game started, and that kind of set the tone. Rudyard looked a little bit off in terms of their speed, not really matching up well with Gaylord St. Mary to begin with. So St. Mary jumps to an early lead. And then, the physicality, the second half adjustments that Rudyard made sort of tightened the gap up. And one of the things that Coach always talks about, too, is just having that level of fitness to get through all 4 quarters. And that was one of those areas where, they had a lot of juice and a lot of legs, as you can see there from Nathan O'Connell on that touchdown run. As we got into that second half, though, Rudyard started to get a little bit of momentum and looked like they were going to tighten it up some more. And somehow, some way, Gaylord St. Mary found an extra gear. And I had a chance to talk with Coach O'Connell about just his thoughts on the game. You go in there as a head coach, a lot about your team. There's a lot of assumptions that you make too. So what I asked him was, what did you think about, what did you learn about your team, and what did you affirm about your team? And the one thing he was looking for, especially with the Rudyard team coming down, was physicality. He wanted to see some physicality. So he talks a little bit about that right here.
It was nice to be able to match that level of physicality, or bring that level of physicality, because as you know, a lot of our kids are very young. And there's a big difference between varsity and JV physicality, let alone speed, and the violence of the game is exponentially greater. Would we be ready for that? And I think we were. So that part checked off the box. Were we physically ready? Yes. Were we physically conditioned for 4 quarters? No, we weren't. We petered off in the middle of the third. We did a terrible job of subbing people in. We should have done better rotations with our substitutions that we'll get better at. So it affirmed that we're good, but we have a lot to work on.
So, he talks about St. Mary being a young team. And one of the things, you don't want to get too caught up on is the fact that, you're looking for progression. And St. Mary's goals are, to improve each and every week, building toward a crescendo at the end of the season. They want to have the Ski Valley Conference in hand. And then they want to make the playoffs, and we'll see, how much work and how much development they can do over these next few weeks will determine just how effective they're going to be if they can get into the playoffs. And they look really good, as young as they are.
Well, the quick question I'll shoot to you is, I know it's only week 1, but they've had time to prepare. Do you see any type of identity? And I guess from either team, obviously it was a lopsided score. Did either team, do you see anywhere the direction that they're headed in, or you still think there's more time?
No, I think there's more time, but I think they've really started kind of shaping that. We could see that in the off season, right, and the preseason scrimmage that they had with Pickford. Coach O'Connell preaches physicality. You got to have that intensity, and one of the things he said he was very happy with is that the kids brought it. As young as they are, they were ready to have some controlled violence occur out there on the field, and they picked a great team for a week 1 game to really test themselves against. And as we talk about Central Lake coming up this week. It's a completely different situation with Central Lake. They've got some talent. They've got some speed. They'll likely spread that ball out a lot more than what Rudyard did. And that was one of the areas, too, where Rudyard was effective in the second half, was working the edges and challenging that secondary in the rush defense. All right, so it's a young secondary that you have to kind of keep in mind. So we'll see, coaching staff is well aware of what they need to work on. There were some miscues, as he pointed out. They got to clean that up. And that secondary has to have a philosophy of pass first, run second, not pass first, pass second, pass third, and then run. Because Central Lake will take advantage of those end arounds and those edges and make them pay. So they've got to be on their best game.
Nice. Well, thanks for that take, Tom, and we'll come back to you when we start previewing the games that we'll be going to tomorrow and checking out. We'll move on, and we're going to go on to the game I was at last week. Elk Rapids going down and facing the Kalkaska Blazers. First time they faced each other, I think, since 2023, where Elk Rapids had won. They kind of been pretty even teams over recent years as far as scores and whatnot, them trading wins, and I think overall they're pretty close with their records. And it really showed in this game, too, as we're starting to get into the highlights. Very inconsistent for both teams. Again, first game of the year, we were kind of talking about that with your game. 10-0 Kalkaska over Elk Rapids, and it was 2-0, as you can see on the screen, for like the longest time till about the last 2.5-3 minutes of the game, where Kalkaska ended up punching another touchdown in there towards the end. But the name of the game was penalties and miscues, and I gave the word to you. I thought there was a lack of identity. I wasn't sure what I was going to see from Elk Rapids coming into this year because they had ran multiple sets last year, and so I was curious if they were going to try to get into more of a running game or keep the same thing this year, whether returning quarterback and Braden Flutie. But I didn't really see any consistent. They really started to try different things and grab bag a little bit as they really weren't able to find or figure out Kalkaska totally throughout the game. They had a couple of opportunities, though. They had one opportunity. They had a nice drive where they got down right on the goal line, and it was 4th and goal pretty much from the goal line. And it was a fumble through the legs and out in the back where they ended up recovering. Again, fourth down, so they lost the turnover and downs. It was their chance to put some points up, and they would have had a lead at that time. So who knows what would have happened. Total yards, Elk Rapids with 110, Kalkaska 119. A lot of that had to do because of penalties, though, too. There was some nice offense that did happen from both sides of the ball. Flutie had a nice pass to Connor Carlisle down the side. It was on our side, really over the top, probably 20, 30 yards or so. It was a really nice pass. Mason Cannon did a great job being kind of the replacement for Joel Darren, the running back they lost last year, kind of their hard hitter up the middle. I really thought they would go to him more. But then they started working in the younger Darren, Drew Darren. But they've got to get him the ball more. His first carry, I believe, was for a fumble. And so I don't know if it was jitters after that or whatnot.
It was nice to be able to match that level of physicality
more times. But they should be able to get him the ball more. He is a shifty back. They did try the jet sweep a couple of times with him. But the one highlight I saw from Elk Rapids was they replaced Flutie, and I don't know if it was from cramps or an injury or whatnot, because there was a lot of cramping going on in the second half. Ollie Trammell, I think he's a sophomore this year, coming in at quarterback, did play some quarterback second half. Man, he threw some frozen ropes. And there was one, I don't know if it's in the highlights or not, but he threw one where they had a receiver going out into the flat, and he threw that over the in-front defender and in between the front defender and the defensive back in the back, and he got it in stride like this and headed for the sidelines. And it was just a nice looking ball. I mean, just the way he sets up and throws. I think Ollie Trammell's got a nice future with the Elk Rapids Elks. They just need to find some consistency. Kalkaska also had a nice three-headed monster. They had two nice running backs in Bittenbender and Seidelman. But you could also call it three running backs because Wilkinson, the quarterback, not only could pass, but they made him a runner too. And the one thing they did to confuse Elk Rapids was whenever Elk Rapids would start plugging in the middle and creating that big box of players and stopping that run in the middle, right, Kalkaska would go spread, get all the defenders out of there, and then they'd run it up the middle and get big gains on the play. They had at least 3 or 4 plays of at least 10 yards or more. So Elk Rapids not really able to figure it out on defense with some inconsistent offense. Although they had some opportunities, you still end up with probably what should have been the 10-0 score that we saw. But Elk Rapids is still, they are a nice looking team, can do some nice things, and I expect them to win some games. They just got to get it. I don't think they've just got their identity yet. And hopefully they can get it together with their next game because they got a nice tough one coming up.
They do have a tough one coming up, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But before we do so, we're going to send it over to Jared, and Jared's going to break down the game that he did, which was East Jordan at Manistee. And Jared, go ahead and segue into that game.
Yeah, so Charles and I were up in Manistee this Thursday for week 1 for East Jordan, the Red Devils. After a 2.5-hour drive across Mackinac Bridge, we made our way to the brisk Manistee air. It was a cold night up there, but a beautiful night for football. And as the highlights are going to show here, Max Beal was one of the main stories, a senior running back for the East Jordan Red Devils. He had 2 touchdowns, a 14-yard touchdown as well as a goal line touchdown. But what really everyone was looking at was the starting quarterback, William Webb, coming off of kind of a gadget player last year. How was he going to fare, hanging the rounds of this new team? And, Charles, I would say he did pretty good. They were pretty conservative, as you'll see here. A lot of the passing downs were pretty short. Right here, quick little passing touchdown for Mr. Webb, first one of the season. And it was really great watching him play. And one of the things that we kind of saw a little bit last year, and they actually did this against Elk Rapids, and they did this again twice this year, was onside kicks. They went for 3 this game and ended up getting 2 of them, which helped them keep the possession, which ultimately helped them win the game. Great game for East Jordan against those Emeralds. And one of the main factors as well was third down. There was 2 3rd and 15 pluses that they ended up converting on against the Emeralds.
Wow.
There's a huge run on one of those third downs as well.
Yeah, and Brady Wilson was the primary benefactor of the passing game when they decided to go to the pass game. He looked great, getting close to about 100 yards in the game, had himself a touchdown as well. The Red Devils had some of those week 1 miscues as we're talking. Every one of these teams is going to have one of these. It is week 1, but they really seem to not get in the hole once they go on those 3rd and longs because of penalties. They would convert them for touchdowns. So, lots to look forward to in this East Jordan Red Devils offense.
Here's one of those onside kicks you brought up, Jared. Take a look at this. So you're seeing it on screen right there. It hits off the shin at about the 35, bounces right back, and that's something that East Jordan has patented, the ability to get those onside kicks when they need them most. And we saw them last year against Elk Rapids. They were able to pick up, I think, 3 of those. Christian Chinsicki was down doing that game last year, and it's become something that East Jordan has a staple now within their offensive scheme.
Nice.
And special teams, is the third part of the game. It's the third facet of football. And their special teams were buttoned up in week 1, which you don't often see for high schoolers in week 1, and that's a credit to the coaching staff.
Well, let me ask you a question though on those third down conversions. Was it more a result of some gutsy play calling, or was it just a play that they were able to break open?
Yeah, so Tom, actually, it was breaking up the playbook a little bit and throwing it, airing it out because they were really conservative with Webb, not wanting to put too much on his plate, especially with a great back like Beal,
Here's the first one right here. Here's the first one at 2:54. This is 3rd and 15, right down the seam. Brady Wilson.
Oh, wow.
That was not Wilson. That was here's the Wilson touchdown. He just catches a nice little swing, and they just notifying and seeing the defensive alignment and using the defensive alignment against the defense, I think, was one of the ways that East Jordan was able to take advantage and make those executions on those key 3rd and longs. Here's another onside kick. This is the first one that they got in the game right here. And just being able to make plays when they needed to make plays. Here's an interception down the sideline. That was another nice play just to thwart the potential comebacks. There's a touchdown there for Manistee. That was kind of the only shimmer of hope that the Emeralds had. And then coming up here, you're going to see the knockout punch. This is Max Beal from 18 yards out, just diving into the end zone, and that was pretty much the game.
That poses my question. I see a lot from those highlights. I'm falling in love with the offensive line. Is that looking like the same in person?
So the offensive line for East Jordan, actually, we gave the player of the game to Thomas Mayhew. He was playing, I believe, left guard or right guard, but he was also playing D tackle, and he was disruptive
everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a thorn in the side of the Manistee offensive line. And like my matchup for East Jordan this week, they'll be playing, we'll touch on that in a little bit. You do not want to be an opposing offensive lineman going against Mayhew or Dion, because those guys bring it. I mean, they are what you would consider lunch pail guys, where when they show up, they're gonna pack a lunch and they're gonna beat on you all 4 quarters. And
Yeah.
that's what they were able to do up in the upper Mid-Atlantic for week 1.
Yeah. That's what we saw with Charlie Cameron. Although a wrinkle in the St. Mary use of that big offensive defensive lineman, they put him in the backfield on a couple of plays, and one was down close to the goal line, and he got in there. I think it was for an extra point. So we gave him a nickname, Mini Fridge.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So if you see Charlie Cameron and Gaylord there, just Mini Fridge. That's his new name.
When I was in school, I was back in the days of the refrigerator, obviously. with you
That's
and I.
right.
Oh, yeah.
So when I played, instead of they had a joke on that for our team. Instead of calling me the ice cube, they called me the snowflake. That was a running joke we had for football that year.
Yeah,
so it was
there you
pretty
go.
funny.
So that was the East Jordan highlight. Now we're going to jump in. We're going to allow Eric, we're going to allow you to take over for the Charlotte highlight. And the Charlotte highlight, they had a close game against an unfamiliar opponent, Unionville-Sebewing area schools, and they played that game down in Clare. And they came out with a victory, and it was all because of their big playability for Charlotte. And you're going to see that as we
Yeah, I was able to pick
right
up. I was able to pick up some notes for this game because obviously I wasn't at this one. But yeah, they were after trailing 6-0 early. Charleroi ended up being able to lead 14-6 at the half, and just like you said, their big playability and still able to hit the big plays was huge. Colin Jess connected with Garrison Sterrett from 69 yards out, and then added a 61-yard touchdown run.
Up the middle for a
Ian
good
Moran also we have another name
Patriots
we brought
touchdown
up
on their
practically
first drive.
every weekend here. Connected with Carter Greenacre, one of
Score
our
with a
favorite basketball
extra
players, on the
point or
second half
points.
with 14 yards. Jess did
is
finish
six.
the night 5 of 10 for 99 yards and a tud, and also ran for 76 yards and a tud. Moran 16 carries, 76 yards, and a passing score. And Sterrett amassed 122 total yards and a receiving
To
touchdown for
nothing.
your
Low
fantasy
snap.
player.
Looking,
And
gets a
here's
hit,
that
fumbles.
opening possession did not start off well for Charlotte.
And the
Fumble
Patriots have
popped
it.
up, and ultimately
High
they
punt
had punted
here.
away, so they were
And
down
good
6
punt.
And so then you don't know what's going
Excellent
to happen
punt.
because you're
They
playing an
just
away
punted-
game. It's
And this-
also at a neutral site too.
Check out this punt right here. They had a 75-yard punt that flipped the field position here on their first possession of the game. So you're going to
High
let this one
punt
go
here.
from your own.
Good punt.
5,
An excellent
and this
punt.
ball's
They
gonna be
just
down
punted it from the
at
20-yard line
there.
to the 5
So
on
from
the
where
other
we
side of the
punted,
My
field.
goodness.
You know, we're
Sounds
talking
like a
a
shallower
90-yard
of a
punt
punt.
where the punter let it go. but
There's your Ray
75.
Guy Award winner.
Well,
Yeah,
right there
exactly.
from high school.
The
And
loose
coming up
ball,
here,
and
you're
it
going to
looks
see
like
the play that got
Unionville
Charlotte back into the
will
game.
have
It
it
was
The
once
that
equivalent
again.
to Ray Guy
That's-
is later.
Yep, that touchdown to Sterrett right here.
Down the
Look.
seam.
Left him and
Got
he
a
ran
deep
forward
throw.
towards
Garrison
four seam.
Sterrett.
Caught it and knew
Still
what to
on
do
his
with it
feet.
from
Can
there.
he get there?
And
Still jumping
65 or
in the end
62
zone.
yards.
Touchdown.
Yeah,
Ritter.
69 and 61. Yeah.
Hey,
And
Charlotte
then,
gets the
you know,
kick.
it was pretty much all
back to
Charlotte
your
from
third
that
and
point on.
three.
They
That'll be a
for Jess.
keeper, yep.
put up
And he's got a
14
lane.
unanswered points.
Got
That's
the
just
bobbing
Jess
around. He's got open
with a
field
nice
in front of
jig at
him.
midfield and took it
Nobody's
the rest of the
there.
way
He's
to
going to
the
take it all the
distance.
way in.
You
Touchdown.
know, when you're able
Charleroi,
to
number
score
2.
like
One
that
already.
from, you know, your own side of the
two.
field,
Hey,
it makes your
he's gonna
offense
go for
so
it.
much more potent.
Well, and you're wondering with the turnover
Full
because
blast.
I believe
Absolute
they started
wrecking
they started
ball,
a bunch of
Andrew
sophomores
Glass.
back in this game
Pitch
too,
to the
and
right.
to find your own three-headed
He's looking to
monster
throw.
in
He's
game
got a
one,
wide
bodes
open man.
well
Oh,
for the momentum
touchdown.
going into the rest of the year.
And then there's that little pitch pass
Extra
from
point attempt is
Moran
good.
that they threw. And so,
Drops back.
you know, 21,
Over.
I
Intercepted.
should say 21 unanswered
Big block.
punts for
Back the
Charlotte
other
Boy.
way.
That put them up,
Hey,
and
they're
then
gonna
the
let the
interception to
clock
kind
run
of
out.
seal the deal
And
there to
that
get that
will
win over
end the
Unionville
game.
Sebewing in week 1. So a very impressive win for Charlotte Boy on the road in week 1 against an unfamiliar opponent, and they did their thing. They took care of business, and that's what I think a lot of people in Raiderville expected them to do.
Well, I'm excited to hear about this St. Francis game. That was the big game for me this
Yeah,
week.
we had
Sure.
the 4 on Friday, and then we had you had a nice crew down there for the Saturday game.
Well,
Yeah.
great rivalry
Or the Friday
too,
game, my
man.
bad. Yeah.
And in that game, it certainly was a rivalry, so let's jump right into it. So, I mean, for this particular game, Jared, you were there with myself, and we were seeing a lot of things that were going on at this game. And the first thing that jumped out to mind was some of the first game jitters, I think, for the coaches. And the first one that stood out to me was the one Glen Lake had, and we'll get into that because they had safety on their last possession of the second quarter. that put St. Francis up 9-0 going into halftime. And I'll let you touch on it a little bit more, Jared, but that game was 7-0 before halftime. It was a very close game. It felt very close, but then you go down into the halftime locker room, down 2 scores, and it completely changed it. That's it right there. Let me bring this back. Here's the safety, and 4 seconds remaining in the first half, and you give up that safety, and then here's a fumble on the opening possession of the
Yeah,
third
that's a
quarter.
collision too. Yeah.
And they picked that one up. So Glen Lake had 2 turnovers, interception, and a fumble. Or, excuse me, St. Francis had the interception, but Glen Lake had a fumble and a couple turnovers on downs, and it just wasn't a clean game. And St. Francis took advantage of those miscues by the Lakers.
Did you see like the air go out of the other sideline with the safety and the other miscues obviously going into the second half? Did you kind of see them kind of like, oh, this isn't in the cards tonight type deal? Or were they able to kind of bring it back in some?
Well, we kind of saw a little bit of both. They actually were running 2 quarterbacks. They had a senior running, and I can't think of the names off the top of my head. I'm not sure if Charles remembers, but it was a really questionable choice. They let the clock. It was 4th down, and they let the clock bleed down for a delay game. For those extra seconds off the clock. There was less than 10 when they punted it, and I was telling Charles, I was like, I'm not sure, because they were trying to push the ball down the field with less than a minute left after St. Francis just went down and scored, and it was only a 7-0 game. I think you just go into halftime happy you're only down 7, and they tried to force it, which caused them to get the safety, and that was really, you really could feel some of the momentum swing, because they came out the Lakers, yeah, they came out swinging to start. They definitely had the energy to begin the game, and Traverse City just kind of dominated them, really from, in my opinion, the start of the game.
Did TC kind of take some of the win out of their sails too, and not just miscues?
Yeah, just because they run that full house set a lot, and it's demoralizing going against that. Bang after bang, especially going into halftime. Only 7-0. The thing was, Traverse City did get ball at half, so you could see why they were trying to maybe push the ball a little bit, but then they're guaranteeing themselves going down 2 scores between half doing what they did. So, some miscues, but also, St. Francis, they're not exactly a team that you can really make a lot of mistakes and, come back from that.
Well, and it's hard first game of the year too. I mean, how prepared are you going to be? And you try to be as prepared as possible. But again, it is the first game, and you can only run what you brung.
Right. So, with week 1 in the books officially, now we get to talk about week 2. Here's the week 2 football schedule here on Next Level Broadcasting. Let's go ahead and just talk about that for a second here, fellas, as we get an opportunity to do so. And I'll kind of segue this in. We'll put it right above where you're located there, Eric.
Appreciate it.
The first game will be Charlevoix taking on Sheboygan, and we'll break that one down. And Eric, your thoughts on that one first?
Yeah, Sheboygan and Charlevoix. Sheboygan coming with a win over Sault Ste. Marie. 19-7, and again, we just went over briefly the Charlevoix 21-12 over USA. Just briefly, we'll talk about Charlevoix's opponent. They ended up beating Sault Ste. Marie 19-7. The nice defensive performance and key offensive plays from Killian Miller, who would be one of their standout performers from that game, rushing for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their defense was a key factor in holding Sault Ste. Marie to a single touchdown also. So their defense able to force turnovers as well, and holding the Sault Ste. Marie offense in check. And Miller's long touchdown runs in the first half and third quarter sure helped the Chiefs build a significant lead to help them get in that game.
That's a big deal too, if
It
you
is a
think
big
about
deal.
it, because Sault Ste. Marie is Big North. They're a Division III team, and so your playoff point situation coming out of week 1 is pretty good if you're Sheboygan.
Well, and you're getting a confident Sheboygan team too. They only amassed 2 or 3 wins or so last year. And again, one of those was I don't want to call it a fluke win, but we mentioned it a couple of times, that comeback win over Elk Rapids when they were down 23-0 and ended up winning 30-23, something like that. So yeah, it should be an interesting game. Let's see if Sheboygan is who they think they are, and we'll see if Charlevoix is just reloading and on their way for another playoff run.
Jared, your thoughts on what you think you might see this week from East Jordan going to take on Joburg, because East Jordan on paper, you would say, definitely an advantage. The Cardinals do have a better group of athletes this year than they've had in years past, but Tom, you can relate to this as well, and might be able to talk to Jared a little bit, but it has been a struggle for Johannesburg Lewiston to get on track the last few years.
Yeah, it has been a struggle. It's not for lack of trying, but typically they're a younger team when they're matched up against in the 11-player pro format. They tend to be a little bit younger, and listen, I mean, Coach O'Connell talks about it all the time. Like with his young team, there's generally a big difference, exponential difference in size and physicality between underclassmen and junior seniors. And so that's kind of what Joburg's had to overcome. A lot of people wondering why they maybe not find themselves in the 8-player format, but they're sticking to their guns, and the struggle's real. It's just it becomes a numbers game for them. And if you've got 11 people that are playing both sides of the ball, the subs are really important to get you through all 4 quarters. So, I mean, that's going to be the challenge for them. And based on what you were talking about with East Jordan, and they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, we expect East Jordan to take that extra step this week, clean up some of those penalties. And with those cleaned up penalties, they don't really have that much really going against them. They've got, a quarterback who showed a lot of promise in his week 1 start, not really throwing the ball very much. I think the next step for East Jordan is just to get that ball out of his hands a little bit quicker in more of the intermediate quick game. A lot of the passes where they're trying to go downfield on 3rd and long, obvious passing situations. You've got a great running back in Max Beal and a phenomenal offensive line, so I don't hate sticking with the ground game, but I think, some RPOs, getting it into those playmakers like Brady Wilson a little bit more just helps keep that offense more available.
Sure. So, I mean, just to touch on that point, and going off of what you said, Jared, I think getting the ball into the playmakers' hands, I think this game on paper would be one you would say East Jordan is a favorite in this matchup. And because of them being the favorite, when you're going on the road, you want to go ahead and make sure that you assert your dominance right away. You don't want to let the underdog feel their way into the fight. And if you're the East Jordan coaching staff, you got a great win on week 1. Now you got to go on the road in week 2 against a conference opponent and handle business. And judging by the way that their offense and defensive line played last week, usually a good offensive line travels. And anytime you can pack up that offensive line and put them on the bus and let them get off the bus first and step onto the field, you're going to have a good shot at staying in any game.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that East Jordan's got to be careful about is that this doesn't become a trap game, that they don't look at a historical record with Johannesburg Lewiston and go in overconfident, because it's a well-coached team.
And they've got Kalkaska next week. East Jordan does too.
Or recent history too. Joburg not too long ago was hardly ever losing a game,
right?
And now they had some struggles the last couple of seasons. So you just don't go in overly confident,
right?
So we're gonna keep it moving here, and then Tom, we're gonna segue to you because you'll be doing the Gaylord St. Mary and Central Lake Trojan game tomorrow night. You obviously saw Gaylord St. Mary last week, and you said earlier what surprised you was how physical that they were willing to be given their youth.
Yeah.
What are you anticipating to see from the Snowbirds tomorrow? Do you think that the Snowbirds might come down to earth after beating a good quality opponent in Rudyard week 1?
So the thing to remember is that it's a very different opponent this week. They went in against Rudyard ready to play a physical game, and they did. They did really well. They matched up well, even though they were young. Charlie Cameron was a big dominant force on both sides of the ball as a defensive tackle and as an offensive lineman, and he was a really calming presence for a lot of the kids too, especially when Rudyard came out and kind of started feeling some momentum shift their way. But this is a whole different team. I mean, we're talking Central Lake. It's going to be a lot more. They're going to be exposed if they don't seal things up on the edge. We kind of talked about that a little earlier. I expect them to use their athletes, not trying to pound it down the middle. I look at them, why? Why would you do that? The other thing you might see them do is try and get somebody like Charlie Cameron or Logan Grenier to over pursue and give them the backfield and use that to their advantage. So play action could definitely be something, but it's got to be a quick ball because Charlie Cameron will get home in a hurry. And the other thing you got to worry about too is you got to thread the needle if you're going over the top, because you've got Nathan O'Connell playing that middle linebacker position. He got away with 3 picks last week, and the dude is just awesome. He's a run stopper. He is a pass stopper, 3 interceptions, and some really key tackles. And the sophomore quarterback / middle linebacker quarterback in that defense doing a great job stuffing the run.
Tom, my question to you would be, if St. Mary goes into that game and they find early on that they got a decided advantage running the football, do you think that they'll deviate from that, or do you think they'll just say, hey, we got an advantage, here's your medicine, take it?
Yeah, that's kind of it speaks a lot to the coordinators,
Right.
and I really feel good about the 2 coordinators that St. Mary has, and both of these guys are on the sideline, running their respective squads. But I don't see them really letting up. If they find something that works, I think you're going to see at least 3/4 of them really imposing their will and sticking to the plan. And I think you get to a certain point, and they're going to start rotating some guys in there and trying to see what they have. Because again, keep in mind, the philosophy is, and you can't take anybody lightly. Central Lake won last week, so they're coming in off a week 1 win, and not an easy one, but this is a team you can't roll over on either. Same thing we just said about Johannesburg Lewiston. Don't take them lightly. And you're playing on their field, so they're playing for something too. And but yeah, if you get them up on the ropes, you just got to keep the gas pedal down to the floor. And as you can later in the game, start working some of those young guys in, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. The goal is Ski Valley Conference Championship, which means Inland Lakes' last regular season game. On the way, though, you've got to take care of your business.
So with that being said, your expectation for the Snowbirds tomorrow night, if you said, hey, their A plan is going to work, who do you think that A plan relies on most? Who do you think the most important cog in that Snowbird team is from the offense and then the defense standpoint?
Both. I think it starts with Nathan O'Connell on both sides of the ball, making good decisions, taking care of the football, seeing him maybe run even a little bit less than what he did. But, he took advantage of what was there, and I expect he'll do the same. There are a lot of options for him, just the style of offense that they run. So he gets a lot of decision making, more than I would have ever expected a sophomore, but he handles it really well. And on the defensive side, again, it's making sure that you're making the right calls based on the offensive formation that you see, and being able to read and kind of anticipate where that ball is going to be. And he does a good job of that too.
Yeah, and I thought what was really impressive for what the Snowbirds did last year is they put their athletes in positions to make plays, and they trusted them to make the plays. And you know what they did? They made them. And those are sophomores and juniors making those plays. And, I know head coach Kevin O'Connell has talked to you about this, but he's told me it as well. Is like these sophomores and juniors, they're getting treated like seniors right now. And that's one of the things I think this team ceiling is so high because of how they treat
You hear him
players.
say it all the time. The standard is the standard.
Well,
it doesn't matter what class you're in.
And we even talk about the 1 year. Talent knows no age. You don't have to be old to be good. If you're talented and you're good enough, you're going to play where you're supposed to.
I mean, it works out for us though.
Right. So Eric, go ahead and break down the Elk Rapids Boyne City.
Yeah,
just
it'll be
for-
it'll be interesting. The quick turnaround for Elk Rapids doesn't get any easier as they have to make the trip to Boyne City, take on the Ramblers. Boyne coming off 18-13 win, making their long trip over to Alpena last week and coming up with the victory.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned it earlier. I think besides Elk Rapids, north of Elk Rapids, I think the whole area has a chance to go 2-0 this week. So.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool to see something like that happen. But for Elk Rapids, they are a good team, and I believe they can win some games and put some points on the board. It's just trying to figure out what personnel is going to carry you through it. Again, talking about Mason Cannon, they had some nice runs. He's a nice hard hitter up the middle, and he had some nice big chunk runs. And I always use the phrase, and I used it in my commentary last week, get from the cow that's giving milk. I mean, they were giving him chunk plays, and then they went away from it, and then the drive would stall, or there'd be a penalty. I mean, they must have had 15 penalties or so that stalled things. And again, you had miscues with the fumble on the goal line, which could have made a difference in the game too. But again, you've got an able quarterback, and obviously 2 able quarterbacks now in Flutie and Trammell that you could mix and match. Flutie does play a lot of time because he does play in the defensive secondary too. So it'd be nice maybe to get some switch arounds, and Flutie can run the ball as well. So you could go full house possibly if you want to do with a different quarterback, or do what you were doing. But I think the main thing is finding an identity. We're going to be this type of team, and we're going to work on it until we become that type of team. I just saw too much trying to figure out who we were going to be. Trying to run a jet sweep when you could go up the middle, or we didn't, or maybe trying to air the ball out instead of trying to run the ball up the middle. Or with whatever's working, keep working it until it stopped, and then do something different. Again, I'll give the Kalkaska reference real quick. Kalkaska ran it up the middle until Elk Rapids plugged the box, and then what they do, they went to the spread to open up the box, and then they run it up the middle. Try to give yourself options to make your plays positive.
Well, you see that a lot, right? If especially if you've got a good secondary, you want to try and bring those safeties down in the box, and that opens up the top.
And you knew what they were going to do for the most part. After a while, you figured Kalkaska's not going to throw it unless they need to.
Right.
And so why not just keep it up there and stall their drives? And if they want to throw it, let's make them prove themselves first, and then we'll stop that.
Yeah.
But too much of just trying to go man on man probably instead of trying to zone it up or box it up and plug it up to stop Kalkaska. And obviously 10-0, they obviously did some good things to stop them. But again, miscues. You're only looking at not even 120 yards for either team in total offense in that game. So, we'll finish it up with Elk Rapids. They are very capable of putting points on the board and winning some games, and they could possibly beat Boyne City. In Boyne City, from the talent that I've seen, it just needs to all come together.
Yeah, and then the last game we want to touch on will be Traverse City St. Francis at Ogama Heights. The game will be down in West Branch, and that'll be an interesting game. Traverse City St. Francis coming off a commanding win over Glen Lake. Jared, you touched on those, and I was there at that game. But this Ogama Heights team is something that we want to circle back on because these teams played 2 years ago in 2023. Ogama Heights defeated the Gladiators that year. St. Francis went 4-4 in 2023, eventually losing to Charlevoix in the pre-district round of the playoffs. So Ogama Heights does have some returning running backs that are absolute monsters. One of those guys, his name is Calvin Marshall. He also plays linebacker, and they defeated Ogama Heights. They defeated Flint Hamady, and it was basically a no contest. I believe 52-6 in week 1. So Ogama Heights is coming off a big win, and Traverse City St. Francis is coming off of a big win as well, beating their close rival. I mistakenly said in the broadcast last week, county rival, but not county rival. The rival from Leelanau County, the Glen Lake Lakers. And we talked in the post-game show to a couple of the St. Francis players, and they were eager to have this opportunity because some of these players are holdovers that played the Ogama Heights Falcons 2 years ago when they were sophomores, and they're licking their chops to get a second crack back at these Ogama Heights Falcons. And I know, Jared, you were with me for that St. Francis broadcast in week 1, and I know a lot of things stuck out to you about their ability and the things that they can do. And I think that this week will be a week where the Falcons watch a lot of film and say, hey, we're going to try to take away the run and look for the St. Francis Gladiators to try to loosen up that defense a little bit, spreading them out, seeing if they can get their playmakers in space. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is once you do make them do that, Tyler Interest has got some legs on him, and he's not afraid to run a guy over, as we saw a few times last week.
Yep.
Yeah, he can do that.
I'm pretty sure he actually had 2 rushing touchdowns on the game, a 12-yard one on 4th down, and I think a little tush-push action in the second half. So
about a 3-inch touchdown.
So, and I remember him in the interview saying that he's actually not won against that Falcon squad.
Yeah.
So, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He really wants to win. So I'd really like to see Tyler Interest take over.
Have you seen the diet that those kids down there are? I mean, it's all cornfields. They're corn-fed.
Ogama
Big
Heights.
boys.
Corn-fed
Oh,
mules
man,
down
they're big
there,
boys.
right? Yeah.
And just to touch on some of those other key players, the Ogama Heights Falcons, they do have a pretty good 1-2 punch at running back. They've got Connor Lambert and Brenton Keith, and each one of those two combined amassed for 122 total yards from scrimmage last week in that thumping that they put on Flint Hamady. So I think St. Francis' greatest strength is stopping the run up front. I mean, we saw them really give Glen Lake some issues when Glen Lake went to a spread and then went in a design quarterback power. That gave Traverse City St. Francis some problems. Ogama Heights, they will feature some misdirection, so it'll be key for those linebackers or the Gladiators to really pay attention to their keys not just visual keys, but watching those guards, following those guards where they want to go, because they will 95% of the time lead you to where the ball is. So if you're the Traverse City St. Francis defense, you got to follow your cues and make sure that you stay in your gaps and in your run fits. And if you're supposed to tackle somebody who you think might have the ball, you got to do that every single time, because one time he'll have the ball and then they'll hit you for a big play. I mean, that's my breakdown. It'll come down to which team is able to nullify the run better, whether it's Ogama Heights stopping the St. Francis run game of Lisinski in the spread formation, a little bit of window dressing, and let Tyler Endress do the quarterback keepers, or will the Ogama Heights Falcons behind Herbert, Marshall, and Lambert be able to get the ground game rolling and set up some of those play action waggles that a lot of wing T teams or single wing teams like to get to, where you hit fullback dive, and then you hit off tackle, and then you hit the fake to the dive, you hit the fake to the counter, and then you boot back to where your guards are now pulling, and you got linemen out in front blocking, and you've got the back sneaking from across the formation on a little drag route, 12 yards down the field, and he's wide open. So that'll be the play to watch in the passing game for the Ogama Heights Falcons. Will they be able to sneak that drag route across the backside of the formation, and what will the Gladiator answer be to that? Can they stop the first and second down carries? Because these single wing teams, they want to get those first and second down carries under their belt so they can set up 2nd and 4, 3rd and 1, because you're not stopping a single wing team on 3rd and 1. That's just
well, I mean, it's Kingsley, right?
right. And Ogama Heights will also feature some spread sets. They'll oftentimes put a good receiver into the boundary and let him go to work one-on-one. We saw that come back in 2023. They hit a couple deep shots to that isolated receiver into the far side of the field, and the Gladiators had a hard time stopping that. So look for St. Francis to really put key emphasis on stopping the run, and then the Gladiator offense, can they show some diversification and say, hey, let's get it out into a flat, get a couple swing routes, get our athletes in space, using them as extended handoffs, and then after that, open that defense up. And then you can go ahead and pound with your full house backfield and force them into some awkward substitution patterns as well, because if you get Ogama Heights in a situation where they got their spread defense in, and then all of a sudden you don't substitute as an offense and you go right to your full house set, whoa, look out. Because now you've got potentially a nickel or dime defense in, and you're running full house, and here comes Evan Bellinger, 6'2", 235, on that nickel back. I mean, good luck. So that'll be my thing to look for. Can they get Ogama Heights into some awkward substitution patterns and catch them in a nickel or dime situation from going spread? Or when they go spread and the Falcons are anticipating full house, now all of a sudden you've got a big, clunky linebacker trying to cover some of these athletes in space. And I think that's where the game will get decided.
Nice. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. We thank you so much for joining us. If you can get to the games, please get to the games if you're in those towns or can get there. Pack those stands. The kids love to see you and they love to hear from you. If you cannot make it to the game, there's no better place to be than at Next Level Broadcasting. Check us out at nextlevelbroadcasting.net. You can see all the games that we'll be showing no matter what day, and you can look at previous games and our previous Next Level Broadcasting shows too. Check us out on Facebook. You'll see some posts there about games and upcoming shows, and you can always click from there and click on the link, which will take you to a possible game as well. Don't forget to go to Next Level Broadcasting on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget St. Mary's Athletics is where you can subscribe to see all Gaylord St. Mary's games, and also elkrapidsfootball.com. Go to their website, click on the Watch Live button, and that'll take you right to where you can watch Next Level Broadcasting at Elk Rapids Football. Once again, for the man Charles Strail, for Jared Stamen, for Tom Clementson, I am Eric Huffman. Thank you so much, and we will see you at the games tomorrow. This has been the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Have a great night.